Ecclesiastes 3. For everything there's a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embrace, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear, a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What gain has the worker from his toil? I've seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with, because he has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I perceive that there's nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man. I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken from it. God has done it so that people fear before him. That which is already has been, that which is to be already has been, and God seeks what has been driven away. Moreover, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, even there was wickedness, and in the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every matter and for every work. I said in my heart with regard to the children of man that God is testing them, that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. And what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beasts, for all is vanity. All go to one place, all are from the dust, and to dust all return. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward, and the spirit of the beast goes down into the earth? So I saw that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his work, for that is his lot. Who can bring him to see what will be after him? We turn to the book of Job, Job chapter 32. Considering one verse, Job 32, verse 8. Considering Job 32, verse 8. Materialism is the notion that only material things exist. I'm not speaking about going shopping and buying everything you want. I'm not speaking about materialism. But the materialism I'm speaking of and will speak to is the idea that only material things exist. And that if it's not material, it doesn't exist. And this, of course, is the dominant ethos of our age, of our era. I teach in public schools often that only material things exist. It's be foolish to think otherwise. You'll hear it from the college professors when you go to college. You'll hear it from doctors in medical school. You'll hear it from our society all around us on the news. It's assumed almost everywhere around us. Anything to the contrary is often laughed and scorned. And so this is materialism, that only material things exist. And so when you get to thought in the brain and how do you explain the human person, you come to the human, and it'll tell you that the physical brain is the only thing that's going on when people are thinking. That the physical processes in your brain are the material processes that are determining all your thoughts, determining whatever you do. Thinking in yourself and your personhood is nothing more than your physical brain. In the history of philosophy, materialism is a minority view. It still is in the history of philosophy, even though it's the majority view today. The majority view through philosophy and through world history has been that that's foolishness. That would be laughed at. Their view through the majority of history is that there must be every person, every human must have immaterial soul. It means a soul that's not made of material, and it is eternal. That the human soul is immaterial, and therefore it is eternal. It does not cease to exist. Has been the majority view throughout the history of philosophy. A person tells you, whatever you think is simply determined from your physical processes in your brain. Isn't that kind of like saying that the circuitry of a cell phone determines all the conversations that take place over it? Well, Job 32, verse 8 is Elihu speaking. Elihu says, "But it is the spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him understand." But it is the spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him understand. So we see three things here, he says. Other translations have, "Surely there is a spirit in man." Hence the title of the sermon, "Surely there's a spirit in man." And then secondly, this is the breath of the Almighty. It's come from him. He's given it. It's like him in some ways, and it's from him. And then thirdly, it's the spirit in man that makes him to understand that we know things through our spirit. Of course, Elihu has his own reasons for saying this in the conversation in the middle of, but we're going to take this single verse today. And where did Elihu learn this? Job was probably the first book of the Bible that was written before the books of Moses. It was likely during the time of Abraham. He likely did not have, the special revelation that we do, for instance. He came from a culture. He's probably gained this teaching, perhaps some from his society around him, the traditional wisdom that had been handed down to him, but especially from the light of nature. And we see that through the book of Job. The friends are speaking from deriving attributes of God from the things around us and natural experience from the light of nature. And so it's likely that he is deriving this, that there's a spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty that makes him understand from nature's light and laws. And what do I mean by the light of nature? It's spoken of in our confession. It is that by common experience, what common sense tells you, what common experience tells you, what the laws and light of nature, what you can derive from common experience. That's what the light of nature is. And unfortunately, our society has secularized natural law. But if natural law is natural, then nature, of course, is from God. It is God's law. Natural law is God's law, is from God. It is his light, it is his laws, and it glorifies God. And last time I preached to you, I proved that God exists from the light of nature and from reason. This time, I intend to prove that you are, in part, an immaterial soul that is immortal. I intend to prove to you from the light of reason and light of nature, just like Elihu and his friends were speaking to Job from the light of nature, that you are an immaterial soul and immortal simply by the things you can know by common experience. Now, this is a little bit different than most sermons, but you may consider it to be something like if Elihu or Job were speaking before us. They were discoursing from the light of nature and things around them, from the animals and from stars and heavens and everything, to argue their points. And so I will be doing as well. I hope this will be eye-opening, that you will come to see scriptural truths in a new way that you haven't before, as I defend the scriptural truth that the soul is immaterial and immortal. And I have one main argument that's going to go through the whole of this sermon. And I say it to you up front, because I want you to be very clear about it and know it. The main argument has 5 premises. 1, thought and intellectual activity cannot be explained or accounted for by material things. 2, matter has no nature to produce what is immaterial. 3, hence you are in part an immaterial soul. 4, immaterial things, unlike material things, have no natural tendency to decay. 5, Hence, your soul will not go out of existence at death. Material things tend to decay, corrupt, break apart. They have parts that break, so forth. Immaterial things do not have material parts. They don't break up. They don't tend to decay. And to give you my outline for what I'll be speaking to, firstly, I'll be laying some foundations with the physical brain and speaking to animals. And then 2, I'll prove the immateriality of the soul has not made it material. And then 3, I'll address computers and artificial intelligence. And then 4, I will prove your immortality. So firstly, the physical brain. I hope we should all affirm that the physical brain is necessary for thought. So when you go to sleep, you're like when you're awake, right? If you grow old and can't remember, as a nurse with the elderly, and your brain decays, can't remember things. You get a head injury. They knew this in the ancient world. This wasn't like brand new to them. And guess what? You can't think straight, or you're not yourself, so to speak. Or as a nurse, as a psychiatric nurse, you inject drugs into people and they will be thinking differently, and their thinking will be altered. So the physical brain is definitely necessary for thought. And when I speak of physical brain, we're speaking often, what people speak to is, the neurotransmitters in your brain with brain waves and electrical impulses and things like that. I believe we should be a fan of neuroscience. Neuroscience is the gift of God, the study of the brain and how it works in detail at the microscopic level. We should follow neuroscience as far as it is legitimate, is a good thing. And yet, physical processes in the brain are needed for thought, but are not sufficient for thought. They're necessary for thought, but not sufficient for thought. Showing that to you. Well, we read Ecclesiastes 3:21, which speaks of animals going down into the earth when they die, and the spirit of man rising to God who gave it. And that's actually a key foundation for this whole topic, that animals do not have immaterial spirits, and humans do. So if we want to know how much of us is material, well, what do we share in common with animals? Well, animals have 5 senses, like you and I, right? They see things, they hear things, they touch, smell, taste. They have those 5 senses. They feel and perceive things. And philosophers have often described 3 more things that they have, something more internal to them. They have a unity of consciousness, a unity of conscious experience. For instance, how do you know the thing that you hear is the thing that you see, which is the thing that you might be smelling? How do you know the thing that you see is the thing that you're touching, that they're not different things? Well, there's something in the brain that connects all those things together to give animals a unity of consciousness. And we have that as well, of course. Number 2, animals have sensory memory. They remember things they heard, remember things they saw, that sort of thing. 3, they apprehend things as beneficial or harmful and incline to them or avoid them. If it's good, they incline to it. If it's harmful, they avoid it. You put food in front of the dog, apprehend that this is a good thing, and they're inclined towards it. So they apprehend things as beneficial or harmful, have an instinct to incline towards it or avoid it. But what can animals not do? What can animals not do? Well, I'm going to argue there's 3 things, definitely, only humans can do and animals cannot do. First one is to form and understand concepts, abstract objects and concepts. Secondly, to judge propositions true or false. And thirdly, to reason, to combine those propositions to infer things by laws of logic. Animals cannot do those 3 things. Those 3 things constitute our intellect, the powers of our intellect, that we can form concepts, judge them true or false, so combine them together, make propositions, and we have human reasoning. So we have an intellect. We can conceptualize, we can form concepts from our experience, put them together, deliberate, consider possibilities, and choose the thing that seems best to us. Well, this is a difference between us and animals. A dog will see the triangle, maybe on his doghouse, if there's a triangle on doghouse, but it doesn't conceptualize that triangle like we do, that it's a closed, 3-sided, plain figure. It doesn't think triangles in that way. arguing it can't. But it sees a triangle, it does whatever it does. Um, well, animals do have in a loose sense, intelligence in a loose sense, right? So your dog gets excited, grabs the leash in its mouth and brings it to go on a walk. Animals can do some basic things. They can use simple tools sometimes, monkeys and things. Sometimes they can solve simple problems. But I would submit to you that is all that it can be explained by the things I mentioned about animals, namely they have five senses. They incline or avoid certain things. And the things I mentioned, I would submit that that is fully explainable to do what they do. But the question is not if they have a loose intelligence, but if they have a strict intelligence, namely, can they show that they understand concepts, propositions, and intellectual reasoning? And of course, scientists have tried to teach monkeys American Sign Language, right? To show that they can understand symbols and things. And this isn't coming from just my reading or perspective or so forth, but Noam Chomsky is someone you may know. He's an expert in this field. He's a linguist and philosopher. And his answer, he's a secularist. He says, no, there's no evidence monkeys, animals, or otherwise can form concepts, form propositions, judge them true or false, or reason with them. Even in all the studies they've done. So humans use language, you and I, beyond our immediate surroundings or beyond our stimuluses around us. We use language beyond like what we need to satisfy our needs. We use language beyond instrumental purposes. So we'll speak of things just because they're delightful. They might be far away. They might, whatever. But animals in these studies, they tend to only use the sign language taught in some sense for immediate stimuluses, the satisfaction of their basic needs and instrumental purposes. And according to Noam Chomsky, it's very different than what humans do or pick up in daily life. What the monkeys do, they're always being conditioned for an action with a reward. They're making simple associations. They don't follow grammatical rules, but they can spit out these things they've been taught to do by rote repetition. They're prompted. Their actions are not spontaneous when they're trying to do American Sign Language. They don't take turns in conversation. They don't make new words, and they don't pass on their supposed knowledge to other monkeys. And it takes a ton of training to get them to do all this. But your kids do it all without training. And your brother or sister who's 2 or 3 years old has a higher level of grammatical and linguistic skill any of these monkeys do. And so Noam Chomsky has said that the claim that monkeys are at an early stage of linguistic behavior is like saying a child flapping his arms shows he has the beginning of flight motions. It's not a difference of degree, it's a difference of quality, a totally different thing. Well, here's the fun part. So I'm going to prove the immortality of the soul, and I'll need your help. So you'll be participating. Think of the number 3. Number 3. Now, where is the number 3? Now, maybe there's 3 petals on the flower. Maybe there's 3 things over there. But how can 3 be both over here and over there at the same time? In fact, 3 could be anywhere. If you have 3 things in a given location, it could be at any location, be at multiple locations at different times, or at no location if it's not present in these things around us. What does 3 look like? Now, maybe you think of the number 3 in English, or maybe you think of how it's spelled, T-H-R-E-E. But 3 is not the ink on the page. It's not the ink when you write 3 out as a word. It's not the ink on the page. You can spell it differently. In Latin, it's trace, but that's not quite 3. That's just the letters. And in German, it's dry. But dry, trace, and 3 all mean 3. But they're different letters, different words. You can make up your own word for 3. You say Shema. That could be your word for three. These words are simply a matter of sociological convention or convention of human societies. But three is not any of those letters or words or what have you. Three doesn't look like the letters three, nor does it look like the number three at all. What does three sound like? You've heard it out of my mouth numerous times, but German is drei, Latin is tres. And what you hear are simply sound vibrations, and sound vibrations are not three. But you understand three when I say three, and you can't see it, you don't hear it. You hear sound vibrations, but you don't actually hear, you hear what I say in my words, but you don't hear three, but you know three, right? Now, at what time does three take place? Now, three, we've spoken of three in the past, so I'll speak of three in the future. Seems not to have time. Seems to be transcendent or universal above time. Doesn't. If you divide three, what do you get? If you divide three by three, you get one, right? If you have three things, you divide them out, and you have one thing over here, right? Well, if brain waves are thoughts, which if you ask people, a lot of them may say that thoughts are just your brain waves. You can see them on a MRI machine, which is not actually true, but you can, these brain waves are your thoughts, right? That's what the neuroscientists will tell you. What happens when you, so let's say there's a brain wave that's three. Whenever that brain wave comes along, you're thinking three. What happens when you divide that brain wave by three? You get a third of a brain wave. But that's not three divided by three equals one. That's a third of a brain wave. That brain wave can't be the number three in your mind, though you have three in your mind. If thoughts are simply brain waves, you never have the same brain wave. It's always different electrotransmitters, always different electrical impulses. But we can think of three at different periods of time, just as we have been and continue to do. And you have different brain waves going through your brain. Three thoughts cannot be simply brainwaves in your brain if we think the same thoughts. If we continue to, throughout our life, think the same three, which we do. Three is the same wherever it is, whether I'm thinking of it or you all are thinking of it, it's the same three. You can't mistake it. If you know three is not anything else, right? So there's a public character. If I am thinking three, you all are thinking three. And we're thinking the exact same three, same thought about three. We're sharing in something together that's in each of our minds. It can't be material. If you can never think the same thoughts as another person in any sense, you can never disagree with them, because otherwise you'd be disagreeing about things that are different. In order to disagree, you have to understand the same thing to disagree about. Material cannot produce abstract objects like three. Thoughts must be immaterial. So that's the first of our arguments, that you can think of abstract concepts or abstract objects. Well, secondly, you can't reduce thought to material or images. A popular way of thinking about how we think in our brain is that, well, there's some representation or image of what we're thinking about. No, it's right. It's a material image representation in our brain. So we're going to play a game. We're going to play Pictionary. Now, Pictionary is where someone tells you to draw something, you draw it, and other people guess what it is. So we're going to play Pictionary. We're going to combine some concepts together, snow and white. We're going to have snow is white. Now, remember, snow is white. We're not talking about the sentence snow is white. We're talking about the proposition snow is white. So I could say the same thing. Nichts ist alba, or German, Schnee ist weiß. You know, all means all these same people, Germany and us, were thinking snow is white. It's the same thing. But I'll tell you what to make a mental picture of. And we'll pretend maybe you have your crayon, pencil, and you can draw these things. And you think how you would picture. So think of the picture that you would make. So I tell you snow is white. Make a picture of snow is white. How would you draw that if you had a piece of paper? How would you draw? or even a mental picture. What do you see? Snow is white. Right. Well, I can imagine when my kids, this is hypothetical, but I can imagine when my kids hand me the piece of paper blank. Quick, snow is white. I'd be like, this is a piece of paper. It's like, no, this is snow is white. I'm like, take it back, make a better picture. Draw a line in the middle of it. He hands it. What is this, a domino? I mean, oh, it snows white. You said, what's this line? Well, it's the ground is white here, the snow, and then you have the white sky. Okay. Well, I didn't say snow is white and a white sky. I just said snow is white. So this doesn't really cut it, does it? Well, now think about how you would draw this. Snow will be white. How would you draw? Or this, snow be white. In the imperative, how would that differ? How would that be different than the previous picture you made, snow is white? When you, maybe you're a really good artist and actually drew really good snow. Well, that's only this snow. That would only be this snow is white. But that's not what I said. I said snow is white. Any snow is white. All snow is white. Right. But you made a picture of this snow is white. That doesn't really cut it. So let's add the permissive aspect. Let snow be white. How would that be different from your picture, snow be white? Draw this one, or think about how you would mentally image this one. If there is snow, it is white. Or if snow has been white, it may continue to be white. How did, of course, the answer is you can't differentiate these pictures. It's utterly impossible, right? It's utterly impossible. Language which comes from human thought so far out surpasses everything material. It can't be contained or described sufficiently by material or images, paintings, or anything. And the issue is not simply how good of a painter you are. If you had snow in front of you, and I said, make some snow piles or mean snow is white, you'd have the same problem. This snow is white. I mean, snow is white. It was blanketed or also, right? You have the same problems. You have the same problems no matter how you account for thought in the brain with electrical activity. Thought doesn't have the properties of electricity. Electricity does not have the properties of thought. Thought cannot be explained by electricity in the brain. Thought is irreducible to anything else. You can't reduce it to matter. You can't reduce it to any configuration of matter. No matter how you configure matter together, it will never give you a thought. Well, not only this, but not only can thought not be reduced to material or images, but images and material can't give precise thoughts. So if you hand me your picture of, snow is white, you'd be like, well, does this mean snow is white, or does this mean snow be white? Or does this mean if snow is white, then it is white? I'm not sure. So in the same way, material and images can't give you precise thoughts at all. So imagine we're all engineers. I'll take our engineering. Well, maybe you have a boat engine in front of you. Whether it's in front of you or on your computer screen, you can analyze it through that, whatever. It's a boat engine. Well, engineers, of course, think about what they can do with this boat engine, how they can change it, design it, how you could alter it, how it might need to be fixed. So no matter what material thing's in front of you, you can always conceptualize in, around it, through it, any angle. You can always think beyond it, or you can think about it in so many possibilities that don't even exist, that the matter in front of you doesn't even account for. And you can, in principle, exhaustively analyze it through thought. Now, if we take a brain, you can always think beyond the matter contained in that physical brain. No amount of matter in your brain can ever account for how you can think beyond it. No matter can ever be so precise or extend as far as your thoughts. You can always think beyond any matter in front of you. And here's something fascinating, truly profound, of the potential of an infinity of concepts. So if you start numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you could never have the time to get up to infinity, of course. We can always add one and add one to that and add one to another one and add one beyond that. And you can understand each one of those numbers individually. You can potentially understand an infinity of concepts, an infinity of numbers, and you can think of each one particularly. You think of more concepts than there ever could be material particles in the physical brain. And that brings up another good point. This is actually number 5 here, is that no material place can store immaterial concepts. You learn new things. You remember it later. I learned that concept. That's how kids learn, right? That's how we learn. We learn concepts. Where are those concepts stored? It's very true that visual sights and sounds you store with your memory. And like I said, I think that is immaterial. It can be explained by the physical brain, just like in animals. But where do you store concepts that you remember? That's right. Here's the problem: is the brain, or anything physical or having matter, is particular, extended, and concrete. And yet concepts are universal, unextended, and abstract. How do you store something universal, unextended, and abstract in something that's particular, extended, and concrete? It's like trying to store water in wire netting. It doesn't work. It goes right through, right? It doesn't work. Well, number 6 here, the last one for our arguments. Immaterial thoughts cannot arise from what is material. Nothing can go beyond its own nature. If something is material, it can't go beyond being material, or it can't go beyond that. A cause cannot give more than it has. No amount of configuration of matter, no matter how complex, can ever do anything except that which is material, or that which matter can do. So, for instance, you have people everywhere in society telling us that we came from monkeys and apes. Well, no matter how much natural selection you have from ape DNA in their brains, you can never, ever get immaterial thought out of monkey DNA in the brain, in the physical brain. Can't happen. Immaterial thoughts, when you have a baby in the womb, cannot arise from physical DNA, from the physical body. God must infuse the soul into every human body. Our soul comes from God, the Father of spirits. Well, as we progress here further, to address computers and AI, what about artificial intelligence, right? We're on the brink of astounding things. Do you believe we are? Well, every computer, don't computers think? Every computer is a machine. It's made out of material, right? It's physical. Everything it does is physical processes at a very small level with circuit boards and things with electricity. And, your computer's being slow. You click on the button, it's being slow. It has that timer. It has that hourglass. And you say, oh, the computer's thinking. Well, of course, we're just attributing a human attribute to the computer, but the computer's not actually thinking, because it's not conscious, right? No robot or machine that's made out of material can be conscious. It doesn't matter how complex it is, doesn't matter how much the computer's advanced, or no material thing will ever be conscious, not anything like a machine. So computers, what do? Computers, you type in information, right? And then they give you back information. They speak information to you, right? Well, those letters mean something to us, right? They might not mean anything to a chip or to some other natural force or something. But to us, those letters mean something. Then the computer reconfigures it and gives us back different letters. that we take as meaningful. We interpret it as meaningful. But the computer, it's not meaningful to the computer. So like when you send an email to your grandma, it's very meaningful to you what you write to her. The computer transmits it to your grandma far away, and your grandma reads it's very meaningful to her. She writes back very meaningful things and transmits it to you. You read it, it's very meaningful from your grandma. But the computer doesn't think those thoughts. It's not conscious. It doesn't care. It can't care. So, right? So computers are machines, and we design them exactly what they do. Now we have meaning, and we give meaning to in the sense to the computer when we design it. Every computer has been designed, so we give them meaning. That's why it appears they do meaningful things. Only what they do is only ever imitating us. It's only ever imitating us. It's nothing more than an imitation of what we do because we designed it that way. We have meaning. Computers don't have meaning of themselves. They imitate. That's all they ever can do. That's all artificial intelligence can ever do in that respect. There's a reason for that. Meaning is intrinsic to us. It comes from our spirits. It's immaterial. Thoughts simply are meaning itself and nothing more. It's immaterial. Meaning is intrinsic to human beings. But to computers, it's extrinsic. So with computers, it doesn't come from their nature. It doesn't come because they're conscious thinking things. It comes because we've put it on them to do certain processes. It's external to them. So every computer, every AI bot, everything like that, by definition, whatever intelligence it may seem to have is extrinsic to it. We put it on that computer. They don't have meaning by their own natures, but we have natures capable of meaning. It's extrinsic to computers, intrinsic to us, no matter how fancy, no matter how interesting they are, no matter how much they appear to be like a human, it's only extrinsic. AI, artificial intelligence, doesn't ever learn. It takes conscious, mental, immaterial thought to learn things. AI doesn't ever learn. It just has more complex processes, physically determined processes. It uses statistical methods and different processes. It spits out letters to you that are utterly meaningless to itself, but it's meaningful to us. It imitates learning. It's not actual conscious learning. It imitates learning. So the question, you have a circle, and then you have a five-sided polygon. That's a shape with five sides, right? Does that five-sided polygon look like a circle? Well, the answer is somewhat, a little bit, kind of. They're different, but yeah. What if you give that polygon 10 sides? It's going to look more like the circle. If you give it 87 sides, it's going to look circle-ish. If you give it 10,000 sides, we could not visually distinguish it from a circle, but would it be a circle? Thank you. It would not be the circle. It would still have straight sides, 10,000 of them. No matter how complex this polygon gets, how many sides you add to it, no matter how much it imitates a circle, will never intrinsically be a circle. It might extrinsically look like one. It will never intrinsically be a circle. Why? Because polygons have different properties and natures than circles do. Humans have different properties and natures than machines do, or computers, AI, and so forth. People still may not get this. So let me hit it the hardest I possibly can, which is all of us would agree you can't create material. We rearrange material. You break it apart, glue it together, we, rearrange it. But we're not God. We can't create material out of nothing, right? If you can't create something material, the world, no AI bot, no anyone except God can create something immaterial. AI, true intelligence and so forth, would have to be immaterial. You can't create something material. What makes you think you can create something immaterial? It's absurd. It's absurd. So, lastly, in this part, you have an immortal soul. Thoughts don't come from nowhere. They must have a sufficient cause. There must be some power or capacity to produce these thoughts. We call it your soul. Your soul has the power of abstraction. I'll explain that really quick. You take in sensory information. We see things, hear things all around us. You take in sensory experience. You compare things and differentiate them. You abstract concepts from your sensory experience. You put them, it's only something immaterial can do, obviously, to abstract from what is material. You put those concepts together, and you can think of yourself. This is nothing material can think of itself, where you are the one thinking. It's called self-reflection. And you are also the object of your own thought at the same time. Not imperfectly, that I can think of myself, that I am myself. That's something no material can ever do. That can think of yourself. Well, so you have or are a power or capacity to think, at least that much. And that must be more foundational than your body. You can lose arms, legs, you're still the same person, right? But your thoughts, the power to be conscious and think is more fundamental than your body. So it's not like the soul and the body are parallel or coordinate, but the soul is more foundational to yourself than your body. Your brain has parts, your body has parts. When you say I am myself, that word I is singular. It has no parts. You can't divide I in half. That which is most characteristic of your person, I, that you think I, can't be divided. Everything material can be divided. Only things immaterial cannot be divided. If I am myself, you are immaterial. You cannot be material simply and only material. Immaterial things don't break down like material things. If you are fundamentally singular, you can't break down. Your body can break because it's not fundamentally singular, and its parts that dissolve, and you can break up the body pretty easily. But your singular self is immaterial. You will not cease to exist when you die. Your soul will continue forever. And this confirms Scripture. Jesus, the one who's gone before us, said unto the Father, into thy hands, Father, I commit my spirit. That's what we're to do at death. Into thy hands, Father, I commit my spirit. Well, I'm going to rehearse the main argument just so it's in our memory. From the light of nature, the main argument. 1, thought and intellectual activity cannot be explained or accounted for by material things. 2, matter has no nature to produce what is immaterial. 3, hence you are in part an immaterial soul. 4, immaterial things, unlike material things, have no natural tendency to decay. Hence your soul will not go out of existence. And we should know this by natural experience. Elihu did, likely, thousands of years ago. Job 32:8. But is the spirit in man the breath of the Almighty that makes him understand? And for our new year, I would give us 4 applications, and we will be done. 4 applications. You hear your whole life, get ready for it, that we are only material, that we think simply by a physical brain. You will go to possibly public school, college, professors will tell you this, came from apes, this sort of thing. You'll hear it in the news, the celebrities, all the experts, all the scientists, all these people. God has made the wisdom of this world foolishness. You will hear your whole life people saying black is white and white is black. Do not be fooled by the numbers around you that believe foolishness, that believe complete falsehoods, contrary to common experience, contrary to you thinking right in front of them and them thinking back to you, using concepts to talk to you. You'll hear this your whole life. And your whole life, you have to say, this is utter foolishness. We are immortal souls, and there's nothing more we can do about that. That's a state of reality. 2, If our spirit is from God, we ought to do everything by our spirit before the Lord in glory unto him. We're to use our whole spirit, our whole strength, our whole might, our whole life to live before him, to live unto his glory in all that we do, to give him all of our honor, to be righteous in his sight, to do what is right and good before him and pleases him. We ought to do that wholly unto him. And 3, you will exist forever. Do whatever it takes to enter into the spiritual kingdom of God. Do not be delayed. Do not be hindered by other things of this world. Do whatever it takes to enter into the kingdom of God, and you know what those things are, or you can ask about them. Nourish your souls in religion and keep it up within your soul. Keep up the health of your soul. Do not let it decay. Do not grow negligent in it. When you remember it, always be cultivating these things and nourish your soul and those around you in the good things of religion, in the peace of God and his righteousness, and of all these good things that we have before us. And 4, everyone you see will exist forever, without exception. Everyone you see will exist forever, without exception, to meet God when they die. Have mercy on them. Tell them, which is the most obvious thing in the world, that immaterial, that thought cannot be explained by matter, that you are an immaterial soul and you will not cease to exist when you die. There's a judgment coming, and have mercy on those around us to tell them that the only hope is Jesus Christ, him crucified and resurrected again for our sins, to live forever with God. May we be faithful unto the Lord in all that we do. But it is the spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty, that makes him